Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are doing great. Happy Saturday. Got a lot of matchups to cover here today, so go ahead and like and subscribe. Check out all my links in the description below. And go ahead and check out the sponsor of the channel, ParlayPlay. Get $10 in risk-free entries when you guys sign up. You'll also get $5 for referring each friend. And you get a 100% match on your a minimum of a $10 initial deposit. So go ahead and hop in there, guys. A lot of free tournaments as well this weekend, and a lot of chances for you guys to make some extra money. So yeah, let's hop into it. A lot of matchups to cover here. We got Georgia versus Charleston Southern. Georgia opening up as 54.5-point favorites with the over-under at 61.5. These teams did play one time before, Georgia winning 55-9. Charleston Southern's only played one game this season. Kind of crazy. Played Eastern Carolina, and that was in September. They lost 31-28. Don't really know why they haven't played, to be honest, but they're getting a pretty ugly matchup against this Georgia team that's undefeated, coming off that 41-17 win over Tennessee. Charleston Southern 0-20 on the road, on a 10-game losing streak. Georgia 10-0 at home, undefeated. Huge spread, I know. Still taking a minus 54.5. I mean, Charleston Southern, Georgia's going to beat the crap out of them, but hopefully they could score enough to where they can cover here. But wouldn't want to take the points of Charleston Southern. You just don't really know. They'll be lucky to get maybe on a couple points, maybe a couple field goals. That's it. Maybe if they're lucky. We'll take Georgia, maybe add them to a teaser, lower that point total a little bit. But yeah, rolling with the Bulldogs all day here. Next matchup, we have Iowa State versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma opening up as 3.5-point favorites with the over-under at 59.5. The last 10 head-to-head, Oklahoma's 8-2, 5-5 covering in those 10. The over-under in this series is 8-2. Iowa State coming off a 41-38 loss against Texas Tech. Oklahoma coming off that pretty embarrassing 27-14 loss against Baylor. Iowa State, they've really struggled against Oklahoma. Just 2-17 against Oklahoma, 1-7 on the road against Oklahoma. Oklahoma 10-0 at home, having a great season. That last game against Baylor was just unfortunate. They did not show up, had the quarterback issues. Still going to roll with Oklahoma here. I think they step it up this week. Iowa State, they just have not been good this season. They really haven't. They've kind of been a letdown, especially after losing to Texas Tech and West Virginia. Hard to trust Iowa State on a 3.5-point spread. We'll hope Oklahoma gets things together here, and yeah, we're going to roll with the Sooners. Next matchup, we have a huge one here between Ohio State and Michigan State. Ohio State opening up as 19-point favorites with the over-under at 69. The last 10 head-to-head, Ohio State 7-3, 6-4 covering in those 10. The over-under in this series is 3-7. Michigan State coming off a 40-21 win over Maryland. Ohio State coming off that big 59-31 win over Purdue. Michigan State 0-5 in their last 5 against Ohio State. 1-4 covering against Ohio State here. Ohio State, on an 8-game winning streak, playing great football. 5-0 at home. I think this is a tough test. This is going to be a tough test for Ohio State here. I think they're giving Michigan State too many points. I liked Purdue last week plus the points. They weren't able to cover, but they were still able to put up 31 points on this Ohio State defense here. Michigan State, they're going to be a big test for them. Michigan State's a great team. Going to be a tough test for Ohio State here, especially trying to stop Kenneth Walker on the ground. I like Michigan State plus the points here. Going to be a really great game, big battle. Taking Michigan State plus the points. I think that's a lot of points here. Next matchup, we have Prairie View versus Texas A&M. A&M opening up as 45.5-point favorites with the over-under at 52.5. These teams have played once before. Texas A&M winning 67-0. Kind of insane. Prairie View. Yeah, kind of crazy. Prairie View doesn't even, I don't think they've even played this season. Can find no information on Prairie View, which isn't good. A&M coming off that 29-19 loss against Ole Miss. Prairie View. Yeah, can't trust Prairie View here. A&M's going to beat the crap out of this team. The last time they played, it was 67-0. Only 45.5 point favorites, which is still a lot. I mean, they're going to destroy this Prairie View team after that loss against Ole Miss here. Expect a huge game for A&M. Going to roll with the Aggies. Next matchup, we have Wake Forest versus Clemson. Clemson opening up as 4.5 point favorites with the over-under at 56.5. The last 10 head-to-head, Clemson is 10-0. Wake Forest is 6-4 covering in those 10. Then the over-under in this series is 4-6. Wake Forest coming off a 45-42 win over NC State. Clemson coming off a 44-7 win over UConn. Clemson on a 3-game winning streak, playing pretty decent here as of late. Wake Forest is 0-10. They have struggled against Clemson, but let's be real. Wake Forest is the much better team this season. Clemson is not the same Clemson we've seen in the years past. No, offense is really bad still. It really is. This Wake Forest team is going to put up a lot of points, even against a tough Clemson defense, which still isn't as tough. You can score on Clemson. They're not really that scary this year. I like Wake Forest. Plus the points, man. I've been riding Wake Forest all season. If you have, you've been winning a lot of money. Hard to trust Clemson, especially against Wake Forest. A really great team with a really great quarterback. Give me the points with Wake Forest. Next matchup, we have Illinois versus Iowa. Iowa opening up as 12.5 point favorites with the over-under at 38.5. The last 10 head-to-head, Iowa 9-1, 6-4 covering in those 10. The over-under in this series is 4-5-1. Illinois coming off a 14-6 win over Minnesota. Iowa coming off a 27-22 win against Minnesota. Illinois 0-7 against Iowa. 0-6 on the road against Iowa. Iowa 8-1 in their last 9. And one thing is Iowa, they can't score. That's Iowa's biggest downfall this season. They just they don't put up a lot of points. I mean, these last 4 games, 27, 17, 7, 7, 23. That's not going to get it really done when you're double-digit favorites here. Illinois not the best team here, but they're riding high, coming off big wins over Minnesota and Penn State here. Yeah, hard to trust Iowa minus any points this season. They just can't cover. Can't score too many points either. As bad as Illinois is, they got 2 really quality wins here in their last 3 games. We'll take Illinois plus the points. Next matchup, we have Georgia Tech versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame opening up as 17.5 point favorites with the over-under at 58. The last 10 head-to-head, Notre Dame's 4-2. Georgia Tech is 5-1 covering in those 6 matchups. The over-under 1-4 in their last 5. Georgia Tech 3-7 in their last 10. Notre Dame 9-1 in their last 10. Notre Dame playing great football here. They really need to beat up on this Georgia Tech team. Georgia Tech, on a 4-game losing streak, haven't looked that great, although they've been able to score points, but it's going to be tough against this Notre Dame defense. Currently on a 5-game winning streak here. 19-1 at home. Yeah, we're going to roll with Notre Dame minus the points here. I think they should be able to beat up on this Georgia Tech team. And Georgia Tech's probably going to struggle to score here against Notre Dame. We'll take Notre Dame minus the points. All right, next matchup, we have the Arkansas Razorbacks versus the Alabama Crimson Tide. Bama opening up as 20.5 point favorites with the over-under at 58.5. The last 10 head-to-head, Bama 10-0, 6-4 covering in those 10. The over-under is 5-5 in those matchups. Arkansas currently on a 3-game winning streak. Bama 9-1 in their last 10. Arkansas 0-8 on the road against Bama, 0-10 against Bama here. Yeah, they've had no success against Bama, like a lot of teams. Bama 20-0 at home. I think it's going to be a tough test for Bama. Arkansas playing great football this season. 20.5 points. I think it's a bit too much. I think should be a closer one than we think. Going to buy a point with Arkansas, get them at 21.5. I think that's a good point spread there. And we'll take Arkansas plus those points. Next matchup, we have Michigan versus Maryland. Michigan opening up as 15.5 point favorites with the over-under at 57.5. The last 10 head-to-head, Michigan's 5-1. Maryland 1-5. Michigan's 5-1 covering in those matchups. Then the over-under is just 2-4 in those matchups. Michigan coming off that 21-17 win over Penn State. Maryland coming off a 40-21 loss against Michigan State. Michigan 5-0 against Maryland, 5-0 covering in those matchups. Tough spot for Maryland, coming off that 19-point loss against Michigan State, bad loss against Penn State. I mean, they have a brutal schedule, and they've been getting murdered against these good teams. I just don't see how Maryland's going to be able to hang around here. We'll take Michigan minus 15.5. Next matchup, we have Nebraska versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin opening up as 10-point favorites with the over-under at 43. The last 10 head-to-head, Wisconsin's 8-1, 6-3 covering in those 9 matchups. The over-under in this series is 7-2. Nebraska on a 4-game losing streak here. Wisconsin currently on a 6-game winning streak, playing really good football. Nebraska, man, they've had it rough. I mean, all their games, 3-point loss, 7-point loss, 5-point loss, 9-point loss, 3-point loss, 6-point loss, 8-point loss. All of their losses are under 10 points. It's pretty insane, to be honest with you. They play these teams really good, but then in fourth quarter, they make bad decisions and turn it over here. Nebraska 0-7 against Wisconsin. 3-6 covering against Wisconsin here. Wisconsin playing great football. Love Wisconsin on the money line here, but taking Nebraska plus 10. All their losses so far, they have not lost by more than 10 points. All of theirs have been battles till the fourth quarter. I feel like it's going to be another one of those battles here. We'll take Nebraska plus 10. Next matchup, we have SMU versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati opening up as 10-point favorites with the over-under at 65. The last 10 head-to-head, Cincinnati 4-1, 3-2 covering in those 5 matchups. The over-under in this series is 0-5. SMU coming off a 55-28 win over UCF. Cincinnati coming off a 45-28 win over USF. SMU 1-4 in their last 5 against Cincinnati. 1-6 covering on the road right now. Haven't been able to cover on the road. Cincinnati, on that 10-game winning streak, undefeated. Cincinnati 1-4 covering in their last 5. They're 10-0 at home. Really great home team here. I like Cincinnati minus 10. This is probably going to be their toughest test against SMU here. But I like Cincinnati. They really need to get the job done against probably their best. They're probably one of the best teams they play on their schedule this season in SMU. They got to get a quality win here. We'll take Cincinnati minus 10. Next matchup, we have UAB versus UTSA. UTSA opening up as 4.5-point favorites with the over-under at 53.5. You can get UTSA on the you can get them on the money line at minus 195, and then UAB plus 170. The last 10 head-to-head, UAB 4-1, 3-2 covering in those 5 matchups. The over in this series is 2-1. UAB coming off a 21-14 win over Marshall. UTSA coming off a 27-17 win over Southern Miss. Yeah, UTSA quietly 10-0, 8-2 covering this season. Only a 4.5-point spread. They just keep on getting it done. They really do. They've been undefeated so far. They just get the job done. We'll take UTSA minus the points. Take them on the money line. Next matchup, we have Virginia versus Pittsburgh. Pitt opening up as 14.5-point favorites with the over-under at 66.5. The last 10 head-to-head, Pitt 6-4. 6-4 covering in those 10. The over-under in this series is just 3-6-1. Virginia coming off a 28-3 loss against Notre Dame. Pitt coming off a 30-23 win over North Carolina. Virginia 1-4 in their last 5 against Pitt. 2-9 on the road. Not playing good on the road here. Pitt playing good football. 14.5. Going to buy a point. Get Pitt minus 13.5 against the struggling Virginia team. And we'll take Pitt minus 13.5. Next matchup, we have BYU versus Georgia Southern. BYU opening up as 20-point favorites with the over-under at 57.5. BYU coming off a 59-14 win over Idaho State. Georgia Southern coming off a 38-30 win over Texas State. BYU 5-2 on the road right now, playing good on the road. Georgia Southern just 1-4 in their last 5. Going to be a tough spot for this Georgia Southern team against this really good BYU Cougars team. We'll take BYU minus 20 in this matchup. Next matchup, we have Louisiana Lafayette versus Liberty. Liberty opening up as 4.5-point favorites with the over-under at 53.5. These teams have played one time before. Louisiana winning 35-14. Louisiana coming off a 35-21 win over Troy. Liberty coming off that 27-14 loss against Ole Miss. Louisiana on a 9-game winning streak, 10-1 on the road right now. Liberty really good covering at home, 8-0 covering at home here. But Louisiana, the better team here, giving them plus 4.5. Liberty coming off that bad loss against Ole Miss here. I think it's a great spot for Louisiana, especially given plus money here. So we'll take the Raging Cajuns plus the points. Next matchup, we have Syracuse versus NC State. NC State opening up as 11.5-point favorites with the over-under at 50. The last 10 head-to-head, NC State 8-2, 5-5 covering in those 10. Syracuse coming off a 41-3 loss against Louisville. NC State coming off that 45-42 loss against Wake Forest. Syracuse 1-6 in their last 7 against North Carolina State. I think it's a great spot for NC State here against the Syracuse team that only put up 3 points last week against Louisville. NC State's much better than Louisville. We'll roll with NC State minus the points here. Next matchup, we have Baylor versus Kansas State. Kansas State opening up as 1-point favorites with the over-under at 50. The last 10 head-to-head, Baylor 7-3, 4-6 covering in those matchups. The over-under in this series is 5-5. Baylor coming off that huge Oklahoma win, 27-14. Kansas State coming off a 34-17 win over West Virginia. Baylor 7-2 in their last 9 against Kansas State. Just coming off that huge Oklahoma win, getting Baylor +1 here. Couldn't be a better line, honestly. I would figure they'd have been bigger favorites. Getting them +1 against Kansas State, I think that's a bargain. Coming off that Oklahoma win, we'll take the Bears +1. Next matchup, we have Oregon versus Utah. Utah opening up as 3-point favorites with the over-under at 59. The last 10 head-to-head, Oregon 7-3, 5-5 covering in those 10 matchups. The over-under in this series is 7-3. Oregon 9-1 in their last 10, coming off a 38-24 win over Washington State. Utah coming off a 38-29 win over Arizona. Oregon on a 5-game winning streak, 6-2 in their last 8 against Utah. Utah 6-0 at home. Going to be a really tough test for Oregon here, but a lot more is on the line for this Oregon team this season against this Utah team. Oregon needs the win. Going to buy half a point, get Oregon +3.5, and we're going to roll with the Ducks. Next matchup, we have Vanderbilt versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss opening up as 36.5-point favorites with the over-under at 65. The last 10 head-to-head, Ole Miss 6-4, 5-5 covering in those 10 matchups. The over-under in this series is 5-5. Vanderbilt on a 5-game losing streak, coming off that 34-17 loss against Kentucky. Ole Miss coming off a 29-19 win over Texas A&M. Yeah, I mean, man, Ole Miss is going to put up a lot of points against Vandy. Vanderbilt's not going to be able to really keep up here. 2-6 in their last 8 against Mississippi, 1-10 on the road right now. 36.5 points is a lot, but I think this Ole Miss team is going to put up a lot of points. They need a nice signature win here. We'll take Ole Miss minus 36.5. Add them to your money line parlays. And then the last matchup on the slate, we have Oklahoma State versus Texas Tech. Oklahoma State opening up as 10-point favorites with the over-under at 56.5. The last 10 head-to-head, Oklahoma State 8-2, 4-6 covering in those 10. The over-under in this series is 7-3. Oklahoma State coming off a 63-17 win over TCU. Texas Tech coming off a 41-38 win over Iowa State. Oklahoma State 10-2 in their last 12 against Texas Tech, 11-1 in their last 12. Yeah, Texas Tech, got a nice little win over Iowa State, but this Oklahoma State offense and defense are the real deal. Been a very tough team all season. They're definitely going to try and lock up on this Texas Tech offense here. I think we're going to take Oklahoma State minus 10 here. They got a lot of momentum on their side, playing good football. We'll take Oklahoma State. That's going to be it for the video. Good luck with your picks and parlays on Saturday, and I'll see you guys Sunday. Have a good one.